Today, or rather this week, so Keir Starmer finds himself not so much riding high after the UK-US trade deal, because there are now question marks being raised and touted about it, but rather fending off an insurrection within his own party ranks. And the rebellion, now numbering potentially 80 Labour MPs, is brewing over the government's proposed £5 to £7 billion in welfare cuts, particularly targeting personal independent payment, that's PIP claimants, and winter fuel support. A group of 42 MPs have already signed a public letter urging a delay, branding the changes the biggest attack on the welfare state since George Osborne's austerity drive. And another private letter to the chief whip is said to carry yet more names, yet this is not mere grumbling from the fringes. This is cross-party, cross-generation, cross-regional dissent, and it's serious. The trigger is Starmer's Green Paper from March, which outlines tightening PIP eligibility, a move that would impact hundreds of thousands, particularly those with invisible or mental health conditions, young neurodivergent adults and people who need help with daily living tasks. And this is only just after the last PIP attack, where huge chunks of paper were sent out, and filling in those forms was a nightmare. The proposals were meant to demonstrate fiscal discipline, but instead the reassurances to bond markets they've delivered simply raw anxiety to Britain's disabled population. One MP, Steve Witherden, was blunt: "My constituents voted for a fresh start, not a fresh round of austerity," and others, including Diane Abbott and Zara Sultana, have framed it as morally indefensible in the face of rising inequality. Make no mistake, this is more than a policy disagreement. It's a challenge to Starmer's premiership. And the language of the letter is unequivocal. Without a change in direction, the Green Paper will be impossible to support. This is parliamentary code for "we will vote against it." And the optics are bad. Labour MPs on both sides of the party, names like Clive Lewis and Stella Creasy, Barry Gardner and Nadia Whittam, are speaking with one voice. When those who rarely agree on anything agree that a policy is cruel, it's worth asking, who exactly is this for? If this sounds familiar, it should be. Osborne-era austerity began with the same language: targeting fraud, modernising welfare, incentivising work. But we know how its legacy, record food bank use, deep child poverty, crumbling social care, we know how that legacy ended. And Amnesty International's Jen Clark rightly notes that social security is a human right. Deliberately retrogressive policy, as she puts it, undermines not just disabled people, but the moral framework of government itself. And the rebellion comes in the wake of bruising local elections. Labour lost the Runcorn and Helsby by-election to Reform UK, a symbolic victory for Nigel Farage. It also ceded Doncaster to the same insurgent party. Redwall MPs are jittery. Their voters didn't sign up for another round of fiscal punishment dressed up as tough love. 45 Labour MPs from those regions have now issued a parallel call to action demanding a U-turn on winter fuel allowances. The quiet rumbling in the tea rooms is becoming thunderous. What does Starmer do? Crack down? Last year, MPs who defied the whip on the two-child benefit cap were suspended. That precedent lingers, but disciplining dozens or even hinting at it could fracture the party further. Yet conceding to rebels risks appearing weak or inconsistent. Pat McFadden, dispatched to calm the waters, told MPs it was a fight of our lives. The phrase was meant to rally, but to some MPs it confirmed their worst fears, that they were sacrificing principles to electoral tactics without public payoff. And the legislation enacting these reforms is due next month. The government is not expecting to lose the vote. Labour's majority is large, even if 80 MPs rebel, and the Conservatives may quietly abstain. But if dozens of Labour MPs vote against the government or abstain, the symbolic damage will be enormous. The letter's demand is simple: delay the vote until full impact assessments on employment, health and care are available. The same sort of demands that were ignored about VAT on private schools, and Rachel Reeves doesn't seem to bother with assessments on employment, health or care. That would be a small concession, but also an admission that the policy was launched in haste, like so many others in this government, without compassion. This is the most serious internal revolt of Starmer's tenure so far, not because it will bring down a bill, but because it crystallises the existential identity crisis of his Labour Party. Is this the Labour of Beveridge and Bevan? Is this a Labour of Tony Benn? Beveridge and Bevan, who built a welfare state out of the rubble of the war? Or is this a party now content to mirror Osborne's logic for fear of spooking markets and losing marginal seats? Cuts don't create jobs. Austerity doesn't create hope. And rebellion, when founded in conscience rather than faction, is not sabotage, it's the soul of democracy. If Starmer wants to lead, not just with power but with principle, then he ought to start listening before his party fractures, not from the outside but from within.